Right, so, does anyone, before I move on to promissory notes, this is the good bit now, this is how to stop them coming to you in the first place, hopefully. So, before I do, is there any questions anybody's got from the first half? Anything that to do with what to do if they come in your door or anything like that I can cover now before we move on? No? Okay. Well, hopefully, like I say, this next section will cover the bit where you won't need to worry about them coming to your door. So, we're going to talk about promissory note. This is my design of a promissory note, which you've all got in your pack. This you can fill in and use to pay off any debt, any secured or unsecured debt. That includes your mortgage, your car finance.
Has anyone tried that? Sorry, Dave.
Yes, they have, because there's case law protecting it. Fielding and Platt Limited versus Salim Najjar 1969, under a ruling under Lord Denning, who was a very high judge. I don't mean he was smoking pot, I mean he was a very high up judge, very well respected, Lord Justice. He's obviously now dead. So his ruling can't and won't be overruled, right?
Is that supposed to be paid out of your trust then, as it were? Right,
so I'll explain, this is it's a good question, right, whether it's paid out of your trust, because the ZKB trust, your birth trust, right, as I said before, people tend to think it's like a huge pot of money there, right? It kind of is, right, because it's a portion of, let's say there's 70 million people by now in this country, right? It was 68 million a few years ago. Let's say there's 70 million people, right? Your share of this country is 1/70 millionth of the gross domestic product, right? The GDP, right? So, of the profit that is made, you're entitled to a portion of the money, all the money that the government collect, right? All taxes, everything, yeah? You actually are entitled to 1/70 millionth share of that pot, right? So, and this is why they give you benefits and stuff like that. People say, you know, if you're on benefits, it's a thing of shame. Actually, that was just an indoctrination thing to get people to be willing slaves, yeah? Where you feel shame for not being a slave. Yeah? Instead, you have to go out and, you know, live to work instead of work to live, is their agenda, their attitude. So, no, this doesn't get it, but it kind of does get paid out your ZKB trust and doesn't at the same time. It's a bit of a Schrodinger's cat situation. It's both dead and not dead, right? Because you access your ZKB trust, your birth trust, every single day. Every time you make a transaction with your debit card, you're accessing it, right, as the beneficiary of that trust, right? If you're declaring yourself then as, so when you fill out an agreement, a credit agreement, you're declaring yourself as the trustee, therefore having the legal right to create that money into existence, right, as part of the trust. Now, who here has ever used a promissory note before? Hands up, anyone?
Yes, bank note.
Bingo. Bank note is a promissory note. A credit agreement is a promissory note. They're all promissory notes, right? They're tradable financial instruments. Now, back in the financial crash of 2007, 2008, where you had lots of companies going down like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, all that sort of thing, Lehman Brothers, because of all the bad debt they bought and then couldn't make good on it, right? Now, that's because they sold a lot of their promissory notes, right? Because a promissory note, what it is, right, it's a promise to pay, just like on your bank note. I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £20. Well, who here can tell me what the sum of actually means? It means nothing, yeah? £20 worth of value, yeah, but £20 to one person is worth different to £20 to another person. You may say, I'll pick that box up for you, but it's going to cost you 20 quid. if you agree to that, you've got £20 worth of value from that service, right? But it could mean, 2,000 sweets. So nobody can determine what the sum of actually is. It's just a faith promise, a trust, right?
Does the sum of mean, if you say the sum of something is what it's doing?
It usually means the total of, yeah. It normally means the total. So, yeah, but then what is the total of £20? What is it? It's not, it's not backed by anything. It's fiat currency. So it's backed on faith alone. Yes, okay.
Up to about 1970s, it had agreed to pay the sum of £5 sterling.
Yeah.
That was silver.
That was silver. Gold and silver it was backed on.
With the Brexit was agreed, they went off the gold standard.
Yeah, 1971. It was America that done it.
Yeah. Well, it passed in London.
And of course, our banknotes are actually, our currency is actually based on the US dollar, the petrodollar, right? So it's based on so if the US currency crashes, our currency crashes with it, because it's backed by the US dollar, by the Federal Reserve, right?
Which is the branch of the Bank of England.
Yeah, which is all, yeah, because they're all connected, that's the thing. But it's all backed by the Federal Reserve. So when they took it off in 1971 off of the gold standard, right, which was tradable metals, basically gold and silver, it then just became fiat currency, and fiat means based on faith alone.
You mentioned earlier,
So shall it be, or something like that, I think it means.
you mentioned earlier that the digital country would be sterling, but our currency isn't sterling, so it'd be a different currency to pay.
Yeah, but you see, now the thing is, all of your loan agreements and mortgages and debt and stuff like that, right, is all based on that currency, that current currency, that fiat currency. When that crashes, so does all the agreements, right? But you can bet your life, because of the Great Reset and their plans for the Great Reset, they are going to intentionally crash it, right? They'll have a date set and everything, so you'll wake up one morning and the big news, breaking news, banks have ceased trading, and you can no longer get cash out, the cash machines have been switched off, etc., etc. You can't make any digital payments. Now what will happen is they'll let you panic about that for about 24 hours, right? And then within 24 hours, they'll issue you, everybody, don't worry, we're here to the rescue, yeah? Download your digital wallet, just put in your national insurance number, confirm all your details, you can download your digital wallet, yeah? It will have whatever was in your bank will transfer into that digital pounds, right? So you don't have to worry, yeah? But also, yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a lump sum payment in that, right, of say £5,000, right, to everybody. And you think, wow, why would they do that? Well, because they have to do that. It's called a currency for a reason. It's to do with the current of the seas, right? That's why it's covered under Admiralty law, right? It's to do with the current, the flow. If they introduce any currency you introduce as a new currency, you have to give incentives. First of all, because you don't want people saying, no, I'm not going to use that, I want to use this, or I want to use that, yeah? If you leave them desperate for only 24 hours, yeah, and it won't be any or much longer than that, I can guarantee you, because they also know the psychology of what can happen over 2 days, 48 hours, and then 72 hours is catastrophic, complete social breakdown, right? So it will be within 24 hours, guarantee you, where they'll issue you with this free wallet, digital wallet, so an account, where you can use, and they'll probably attach it to you, or they'll probably say, don't worry, you'll get a card which you can scan and use, or you can just use the app on your phone, yeah, contactless payments and whatever. You'll feel no pain from it. Yeah, you'll feel no pain, everything will be the same, you'll be able to buy the same stuff, yeah, but now you're using this account instead of that account, right? What they won't tell you is that's a programmable currency, which means eventually, once they've got people spending, of course they'll give you £5,000 or even £10,000 worth. Doesn't matter to them, they've created it out of nothing, right? But it then makes you go, oh, well, I'm going to go out and buy myself a nice big widescreen TV, which I've wanted for, 70-inch TV, which I've wanted forever. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to go and buy myself a new Xbox or a new car or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So once they know that money won't last you long, and then you've got used to spending on that account. So now you're used to that system. You're not going to repel it, right? Because you're used to it now. You got used to it pretty quick. Actually, it's quite painless. Yeah. But then eventually, what will happen is they'll say, right, we've decided you can't spend it on alcohol. Yeah, or you can't buy cigarettes with it. We're banning cigarettes. You can't buy cigarettes with it. So they program the currency. They can do it individually as well with your wallet, digital wallet. So what they could do is somebody who is charged with an offence relating to drink or say alcohol-related offence, drunk and disorderly, they can ban them from buying alcohol just by programming their wallet to say reject any payments for alcohol. So it's completely programmable. So they'll get you in the end, or they'll get the mass majority in the end. So because of the Great Reset, because what they want to ultimately do is you will own nothing and you will be happy, is their tagline, right? That means they've somehow got to take all your stuff off you and then either lease or rent it back to you somehow, right? So how are they going to do that? Yeah, they're probably going to do it by you not being able to cover your mortgage because the pound is worth pence now. Yeah, but they're demanding, because of interest rates, they're demanding now £1 million a month. Yeah, instead of £250 a month because of the devaluation of the currency. The lira didn't start out with £1 million notes being worth about a tenner. Do you know what I mean? They started off with a lira, yeah, and it's because of inflation and hyperinflation and super hyperinflation. Eventually, you need 10 million of them to buy a loaf of bread or something stupid like that. So that's kind of how the currency works. Yes, my friend, did you?
I was just going to say, there's a newspaper article I often bang on about.
Yeah.
I run a radio show and I'm always trying to hammer home to people. There's an article published in the Daily Telegraph in 2020 when Boris Johnson was still Prime Minister. No one had really heard of Rishi Sunak. He came out of nowhere, all of a sudden COVID, and his favourite word was unprecedented. Article in the Telegraph stated from 2020 stating Mr Sunak and Steve Barclay set up a large investment firm in Silicon Valley before entering politics. Now Rishi Sunak's Prime Minister, they've had this sewn up for donkeys.
Oh, they have, yeah. They have, and he's a big promoter of the CBDC, so it's definitely going to happen. I mean, the articles are already there saying the Bank of England are already working on it for emergency situations, do you know what I mean? But that will be the emergency situation. Yes, my friend.
Already, I don't know if you remember, June the 8th last year, the Queen announced Major Act, something that they're all doing in Privy Council, saying as from January the 1st this year, policy is running behind time, fiat currency will be abolished, and already now that's minting gold sovereigns and silver sovereigns, starting a value of £1,000. But in the detail, it says they got various amounts that people will be given, up to £1 million or something, but it's just depending on your status on the land. So I presume you're actually living on the land and not at sea.
Yeah.
In other words, that you own a bit of land somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the whole thing about common law, is proving that you're a living man or woman living on land, and that maritime admiralty law doesn't actually have any jurisdiction here until you give it jurisdiction based on your commercial self, right? Your birth trust, your name, right? Then you give it authority. So it's got authority all the time, you give it authority. You take that authority away, it has no authority, because it doesn't have authority over living men and women.
But technically you're not living on the land because they own the land.
Well, you are still living on it. I mean, it's all still a fraud. Nobody actually owns it. It's just under their admiralty laws, right? You have the perception of owning it, right? You can put your border fence up or wall or whatever and say, I own that plot of land. But of course you don't. Nobody actually does. It's only legally, you have title deeds, which are to do with legal, not lawful, right? That says I claim that land in this name, in this trust, right? I claim that land, right?
Unless you have a Lloyd or title, and you own it all, don't you?
Yeah, but that's the thing about titles and title deeds, is that they're legal instruments, right? If you refuse any authority to do with legal instruments of any description, right, and you claim that you live as a living man at all times, and you never use bank cards to pay anything, yeah? You exchange with people goods and services. That means that you can walk across any land, whether it's private property or not, because civil falls under legal, doesn't fall under lawful, right? Everyone has the right to travel unmolested according to the Magna Carta. But even the Magna Carta operates under Admiralty law because it's a signed document, it's a contract, and all contracts are covered under Admiralty law.
Well, it was based on common law anyway.
Yeah, based on common law, but what is common law really? It's a law for the common man, but the trouble is it's written by uncommon men. Yeah, so it's never truly written in your favour. Anything that is there in your favour is only there because it's in their favour. Yeah, and it serves their purpose. So when they write into the likes of common law or whatever, like I say, common law isn't a separate to Admiralty law, it's a part of. If you commit an offence, even a common law offence, right, you go to a court, a criminal court, they're not just doing you as a living man, they're doing you as a legal entity, right, to make you liable. All they're interested in is compensation. Whether it's by the sweat of your labour, if they incarcerate you, yeah, when then get you making washing machines, white goods and mailbags and stuff, right, or by fining you somehow for that offence and charging you costs, and it's just a business transaction to them. It's got nothing to do with under natural law or common law, right? Even though they say, contrary to common law. So if you punch somebody, it's an assault contrary to common law. Yeah, so you're not actually appearing as a living man. You're appearing as a legal fiction. So you could dismiss that legal fiction and insist that you have a jury of your peers. But then you could argue, well, they're not my peers because they all identify as dead entities. I need lawful I need lawful living men or women to sit on the jury before you can try me. And then I'll be tried as a living man, accepting the authority of my peers, but they're not my peers. They're all legal fictions. So they can't hear what I've got to say because I'm a living man. They can't hear me because the dead can't speak to the living and the living can't speak to the dead. It's a legal principle, a lawful and legal principle.
Well, legal means unlawful, doesn't it, really?
It does, but they're acting unlawfully all the time, right, with everything they do. But they make the rules, and we consent to it. How do we consent to it? Well, we go and put a cross on a voting slip at some point, right, which gives them authority, gives them consent. They don't care which box you put it in. They all work for the same, they're all heads of the same snake. Yeah? They are. It's His Majesty's government and His Majesty's official opposition, not the people's government and the people's opposition. It's His Majesty's. They take their oath to the crown before they can take their seat in Parliament. So when you turn up, right, you have to identify, at the polling station, you have to identify yourself, right, as your legal fiction. That is giving your consent, right, to be ruled by that tyranny. You've given your consent to be ruled by that tyranny. And the fact...
It's not the royal crown, it's the because they own the royalty, that when England went bankrupt in the early...
But the king has got no more power than you have. You've got exactly the same power as the king.
No, I'm just saying how the structure is now.
They just managed to...
It's the City of London crown.
Yeah. Well, the City of London is a sovereign state, sovereign country.
You can tell the difference. The City of London crown doesn't have an iron on the top of the crown, whereas the royal crown doesn't. And you see all government stationery has the City of London crown on it.
Yeah. Right, let's move on to the note itself. So, anybody here got a CCJ against them, county court judgment, or a charging order on their property or anything like that? Anyone? No? Okay. If you have, right, it would actually be a good thing. Okay? It would actually benefit you, it would help you to get a CCJ, right? And I'll explain why in a little while.
I want one of them.
Yes, no, there's a perfectly good reason as to why it's actually helpful to you in this process. So, a promissory note, what is it? It's a promise to pay, it's an IOU, right? A promissory note is covered under the Bills of Exchange Act 1882 Part 4, which defines what a promissory note is, right? A tradable financial instrument that becomes tradable financial instrument upon creation, signature and delivery, right? Once it's been delivered, it is now a financial document. Yeah? It's no longer just a piece of paper with print on it, okay? The same as a credit agreement, exactly the same thing, because it sets out the amount owed, so the value of the note, okay? So let's say you owe £100,000. Let's say I owe £100,000. I put the amount at the top here, top right, in numbers, £100,000, right? And then underneath it says amount again. I write in words the amount, just like you would on a cheque. If you say £1,000, you fill that in numbers on the box and then write £1,000 only, right? If you owe something pence, round it up, you know, tip them, what the hell. Right, so you write in words, right? And that is so nobody can just add a 1 or a 0 or change a 0 to an 8 or anything like that, right? Because it would be written there in words. At the very top right-hand corner, you've got note number. Now that's important, okay? You create that note number yourself. That's your number, anything you want. Now, I've recently done one of these for a debt for my other half, my beautiful Jess. She has got an old credit card debt that is not yet statute barred, so it's within 6 years. So they're chasing for the debt with a CCJ against her, right? So last week I sent one of these off to pay for that. We weren't just going to diss it, ignore it, you know, etc. But I thought, no, let's try the old promissory note with it. Let's do it with the promissory note, just so I can show people how it works, right? So, sent one off. I haven't had any response yet, but what I have got is proof of delivery. Now, when the post office opens up this Tuesday, after the bank holiday Monday, I will be sending off a form to the issuing court, the court that issued the CCJ, and this is where it helps you if you've got a CCJ or a charging order against your property or land. Because if you have, right, all you do is you go onto the government website, gov.uk website, and you download a form N443, right? And what that form is, N for November 443, what that is an application for a certificate of satisfaction / cancellation, right? So how it works is, let's start with certificate of cancellation first and foremost. a judge orders, let's say on the 1st of May, issues a county court judgment against you, right? You then get confirmation through the post from the court to say this was the judgment against you, this was the date, 1st of May, it's now, let's say, the 14th of May. So, you write a promissory note out for that amount, right? And then you send it with the form N443, right? You tick cancellation, you've got satisfaction or cancellation, you tick cancellation because it's within 30 days of the issuing date of the court order, right? So what you do is you send off that form, you fill out that form with the details of the court, the issuing court, along with your proof of payment. So when you filled out your promissory note, you've completed it, before you post it, you want to photocopy everything you put in the envelope before you put it in the envelope. Okay? So you want copies of this for your records, and that is vitally important to you. Okay? So make sure you scan it or take a photograph of it, whatever you want to do to have a record of that particular promissory note, with that particular promissory note number that you've created. Now with my other half, I used their initials, JMC, and then the date, and then 01 on the end, and that became the promissory note number for that particular note. So JMC, I can't remember what date it was, and then 01, right? It can be anything at all. It's your number, you create it, it's for your records, and so you can identify that particular note. Should the holder of the note come to collect on the note, right? Which I'll get to in a while. So you create a number. That number you write down on your promissory note index sheet, right? You've got room there for 10 notes. So you put the date, the name of the recipient who you made the note out to, the note number, that's what you put in there, the amount it's for, and any notes that you want to add, like you could say what the repayment is that you've written down, the repayment method, and what interest rate you used. You also have a covering letter in your pack, which you fill out the details. So you've got to and from. To, that's to the corporation you're paying, making the payment to, their address. From, your details, all in your name and address, your full name and address. And then you fill out the rest, date, as in regarding, and you would put payment in settlement of, blah blah, reference, etc, etc. Account number, which would be on the, so if it's anything where somebody is chasing you for money, they've set up an account for you, right? Even if it's a debt collector, they have an account for you. So it will be included on any correspondence. So write that down, just to identify that that particular debt is now being settled with this particular promissory note, the number of which you put in the brackets there on the covering letter. So this, let's read that, the covering letter. Dear Sir or Madam, please find enclosed a promissory note, number blank, as full and final payment and settlement for the amount outstanding on my account. I would very much appreciate it if you could send me a receipt for the payment received within 30 days of the date of this letter. Sincerely, in pure truth, and then you sign it underneath. Right, so you send that along with this promissory note. This promissory note, like I say, you fill out the amount in numbers, the amount in words. On the left-hand side, it says this promissory note was issued at, put your address where you created and issued the note from, okay? Put your address and the date, okay? And then underneath is the declaration. This certifies that I, and then you put in your name, put in your full name, date of birth, fill that in as well, hereby promise to pay, and then the name of the holder of the note, so the company or organisation or person that you're paying. So if it's EDF you owe to, it'll be EDF Limited or PLC or however they choose to
But you
identify.
are actually agreeing to pay.
Yes, but here's the clincher, right? Hereby promise to pay, and brackets holder, that they become the holder of the note, the full amount on this note for value received. The payments will be made in monthly instalments of, and then you put an amount, right? Now, if you owe £10,000, put, I don't know, £20. £20 per month is what you're agreeing to pay, right? And you may think, yeah, but I'll never pay that back. I'll never live that long. Doesn't matter. You're operating in commerce, which is the land of the dead, not the living, right? It's why you could go to an estate agent when next time they're open, right, and sign a 99-year lease. You know, you might be in your 50s, you're not going to live till gone 150, but it doesn't matter because it's not about how long you're going to live. It's the value that that note retains, right, until it's settled, right? Now, you put an amount that, this is my advice, you put an amount that is not economically viable for them to come and physically collect, because you're going to get them to come and collect it from you in person. You're not going to make any digital payments at all on this note, and in order to collect on this note, they must provide the original note, not a copy of the note. Okay? So, no banking or financial organisation is going to give that note to a collection agent, who they're now having to pay probably £50 to £100 to go and collect 20 quid off you plus interest, right? It's not economically viable, but you don't want it to be economically viable because you're trying to force their hand, because they've got options, you see. Once they receive this, they've got options, right? And those options are, they can either keep hold of it and then send somebody to collect the repayments on that particular date because you specify the date. So it says the payment will be made by monthly instalments of, let's say, 20 GBP, plus interest at, and you set the interest rate. Now I recommend the interest not being zero, saw that, right? I recommend using around about the same as the banking sector uses, which is currently 4.25%. So I'd round that up to 5%, right? That's what I did, round it up to 5%. Doesn't matter, because if they're not going to come and collect on the £20, they're not going to come and collect 5% of £20. You can put 100%, it's still not economically viable, right? So, £20 plus interest of £5% per month on the, and you put a date each month that they can come and collect on, right? So you could say the 1st of every month or the 15th of every month, right? 15th day of every consecutive month means that becomes payable on that day. But they've only got a reasonable time, according to the law, to collect it. So if they collected it the next day, that's fine. They can't collect it the day before because it's not due yet, right? But on that day, or a reasonable time considered by the courts would be probably 7 days, because in case it falls on a weekend or bank holiday, right? So,
So if they knock on your door a year later, they can't pay daily.
no. They can only collect one payment per visit, right? Because the next payment doesn't become payable until the following month, right? If they miss a month, they can't collect 2 payments, right? There's no dispensation for that, right? So if they don't collect it, they don't collect it. Simple as that. And you will carry on paying that until the amount has been settled.
50 years, whatever.
200 years, if it takes 200 years,
Yeah.
right? That will still be owed. Now, as I say, they can keep that, right, on their files, yeah, which, as I say, either to, what's the word I'm looking for? To collect from you, which they're not going to do, so you've shut down that option by making it economically non-viable to them to come and collect it. It's going to cost them too much money to collect too little.
Could they write back to you, like we told Jess,
So yeah,
Could they write back to you like we've done with check
I would hope so.
and say, sorry, we're not going to accept this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you're hoping
And
for.
then you're going to, no, we're not accepting your terms.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't
No, it doesn't
matter.
matter. Under the law, it doesn't matter. Right? That's not how it works.
Okay.
Right? The way it works is that they can't refuse this on the basis of payment preference, as per Lord Denning's ruling in Fielding and Platt Limited versus Salim Najjar. Right? They can't refuse it on the grounds of payment preference. Right? That there's case law to protect it. It's legitimate. It's legal. It's a payment in advance. It's no different than you filling out and signing a credit agreement. When you do that, right, it's not costing them a penny. You create that money into existence. If you borrowed £10,000 from a loan company, right, they only have to have £1,000 on their books to lend you £10,000. It's called fractional reserve banking, right? So they only have to guarantee 10% of that. And they can lend 9 times more than that, right? When they receive this, right, if they want to keep it and not collect on it, but want to keep it anyway, why would they want to keep it anyway? Well, so they can lend on it, because as soon as you've given them that, you've created that money into existence, right? You're basically saying, I'll pay you at a later date, yeah, but it's available now as a financial instrument.
They could reply to you and say, we don't recognise this.
Yeah, they could do that, and they often do. I would say 99.99% of cases, they will send it back saying we don't accept promissory notes. I know that because I'm helping other people with the process, right? And they've had that response back.
Would you bounce a letter back?
No. What you do is you keep that because that's proof that you've delivered. Ignore what's the content of what they said.
Yes.
That's immaterial. That means nothing. That's just them going, no, we don't want that. We want paying in banknotes. Or we'd like a direct debit. Yeah, shut up. I'm not listening to you. You don't exist. Yeah? The debt has been settled. And it's settled because you've created a new debt. And you can pay off debt with debt. You always do. You pay for debt with cash, which is a promissory note, which is based on debt. You pay for debt with a credit or debit card, which is based on debt. They cannot refuse under that case law, right? That was the point of that case, was that he said that Salim Najjar said, well, I should be able to pay for those goods and services that I've been invoiced for with my promissory note. And they said, well, we don't accept promissory notes. And Lord Denning said, you've got no choice. If you don't accept promissory notes, you're saying there is no debt to settle. But under the Bills of Exchange Act 1882, right, this is a financial instrument, right? This can be traded internationally. And what they do is they get these and credit agreements and loan agreements, all kinds of things, and they put them in bundles, right, where people have defaulted and whatever. That's why they sell these bad debt bundles. And what it is they'll sell a bundle, let's say they've got 10 million pounds worth of these notes and credit agreements and whatever. They sell that probably for about £500,000, right? So why would somebody buy that? Because immediately when they bought that bundle, that's added to their bookkeeping, right? They now own that much money that's based, that says of the amount, not what they paid for it, but the amount, which means under fractional reserve banking, they can now lend out to other people £90 million based on your £10 million note, right, or bundle. They can lend out £90 million and gain the interest on that.
So you could potentially give that to a bailiff who knocks on your door and said you owe £5,600 to another.
I would just send the bailiffs away. If you've done this right, yeah, then you won't even get bailiffs at your door because you paid it.
So this is before the bailiffs, say like
before the
your
bailiffs, I've got that.
electricity bill.
Before the, I mean, don't sort of think to yourself, oh, if it's before the bailiffs, you know, what happens if the bailiffs turn up in the meantime? Send the bailiffs packing, right? Send the bailiffs packing, right? Don't let them in. Stand your ground. Sit in your car if they're going to take it. That's all they've got. It's the only leverage on the outside of your home is your vehicle, right? So if you sit in it, you've got a lawful legal right to sit in it. If you sit in it, nobody can move it. it's an offence, right? And the removal guy knows he would be committing an offence having a person inside the vehicle as he's trying to tow it. So
Would you send that off for, say, like a parking fine or a speeding fine, or?
you can pay anything off with it whatsoever, anything at all, whether it's court fines, whether it's credit card debt, whether it's... I always advise people to focus first and foremost on secured debt, because that is secured against your property, right? So that's something that you risk losing. That is a major thing to lose, right? Not as easily as replaceable as a car, for example. But a car on car finance, you can pay that off. Student loans, student debt, pay off student debt with it.
But someone's saddling behind on their mortgage payments, and then the legal action has taken place.
Right. If the legal action's taken place, there's now a judgment in place, right? So now you can request a certificate of satisfaction or cancellation, and that's where I say people are in a better position if they've got a CCJ against them or a charging order against them, right? Then they don't have to communicate with that company anymore. They communicate now directly with the court, right? And what they do is they fill in that form N443, they send that off with their proof, with their photocopies, yeah, and a copy of the covering letter, you know, clip it together and send that as a pack with the application form and with another covering letter just explaining that you would like to apply, have a certificate of satisfaction or cancellation if it's within 30 days, but if not, you get a certificate of satisfaction. Now, a CCJ, if it's gone past the 30 days, that CCJ will remain on your credit file for 6 years, even if you pay it off. But if you pay it off, what happens is, it then gets marked as settled. So your credit score boosts up, right? So you'll be able to get further lending. Yeah, you'll have lending power. Because it will no longer be marked as a default, it will now be marked as settled. That's an instant boost of about 90 to 100 points or whatever. Yes, well, lovely.
If you've got a charge on your property and you sent the promissory note, let's just say, for instance, they to accept it, how do you get the charge taken off? Surely you
with the certificate of satisfaction. That's what the N443 form is for,
So
right? So it's for a charging order or for anything where there's a court order. So a charging order is a court order, right, ordering that it goes on their records, on their register, so that when the property is sold, that register has to be checked to make sure there's no charging orders on it and, you know, nothing has to be taken from the final valuation fee. Yeah, what you do is you get that certificate of satisfaction, right, and then if the bailiffs turn up after that, excellent, you've got a certificate of satisfaction, they'll walk straight away again. Yeah? You don't even have to get into a row with them now, you've got proof of payment, right? Also, the company can't take you back to court to get another court order because the court records will show it's been settled with a legal financial instrument, right? That was proven to be delivered. Now, if they send you a letter to say, we don't accept this, right? Send them a letter back again to say, thank you very much for your confirmation of receipt of my promissory note. As I'm sure you are aware, a promissory note cannot be rejected on the grounds of payment preference under the ruling of Lord Denning in Fielding and Platt Limited versus Salim Najjar 1969. Please cease from any further enforcement action, etc., etc. You know, you'll figure that sort of bit out yourself. But you can feel rather smug with yourself, because now they can't deny they got that note. Yeah? You've now got proof they definitely did, and they responded to it. And as far as the Bills of Exchange Act 1882 Part 4 is concerned, as long as they've received that note, it's been delivered, right? It then has value, it then has life, you give it energy. Right?
So the obligation is on them.
The obligation then is for them to accept it or deny that there was ever a debt in the first place, because they can't refuse it under that case law.
Okay.
right? They can't refuse it. And the courts know this, and ultimately the courts make the final decisions. So you only have to go into court and quote that case law, and the judge's hands or the magistrate's hands are tied. They can't, even if they didn't like you and wanted you to have to pay in cash, they can't do anything about it. It's legal, it's legitimate, you've created it, you create all money, right? Money is created by your signature, right?
You really have some fun with this.
Oh, you can have lots of fun with it. Yes.
This is like a license to print money. So why isn't the whole like why aren't if I could go away now and think, well, I'm going to go and get a big motor down the road and I can get a house and everything, surely this can't be right.
Well, what bit of it do you think can't be right? Let's take one of those things, for example. Let's say a car.
But everyone would be able, wouldn't they, surely?
Well,
But they don't know about it.
Without breaking the law.
they would have to know about it. They'd either have to go to one of my talks or watch it on YouTube, you know, and then they'll get to know. That's my hope. Yeah.
So I can leave here now and think, okay, right, I'm going to break law without breaking law.
Right. So let me explain. Because I was asked this as recently as I think this morning or last night, whatever it was, on
I
my
could use this to benefit my own
Telegram.
self, so I could make
right.
it
So somebody said to me, so I could then pay my mate, yeah, say 300 grand promissory note, yeah, and he could go to his bank and then put that in his bank, and then he's got 300 grand he can withdraw out. You can't bank a promissory note. You can't bank it. You can sell it. You can trade it. Now, if this note was filled out, somebody had given it to me because they're in payment for a service, for a debt, a service, right? I can sell this and get money for it, or I can collect on it, right? If I'm happy to go to their address and follow the terms and conditions, right? Or if you accept payment in the form of promissory note, right? Because you want for your maybe investment portfolio, you would like the idea of 300 grand there, right? You might want to set yourself up as a financial institution. You might not have any money whatsoever, but if you've got a promissory note, you have got money on your books, right? So you can then create money. You would have to follow the FSA, Financial Services Authority regulations and registrations and stuff like that. But technically, if you accept it, right, and I'm giving it to you, and you've accepted it, that's legal tender. That's all a banknote is.
But what is the difference between and a fake banknote?
Right, so a fake banknote is nothing more than copyright. Right, it's copyright, that's all it is. That design, that particular paper, those particular images are all copywritten, right? So when you copy a banknote, it's copyright infringement, yeah? It's fraud based on copyright infringement. Because it's same as if somebody copies that after you filled it out, right? Copies it exactly, yeah? They've committed fraud against you, right? Because that's your note. That's your signature, that's your details, that's your note, right? And if they're trying to pass it off as your note, their note as your note, they've committed fraud. So that's what, it's not because you're not allowed to have banknotes. They're called banknotes because they're issued by the bank, but it's not that you're not allowed to have promissory notes. Look up I don't know if you've heard of the Lewis pound. Yeah? There you go. The Lewis pound is essentially the same kind of thing for services in that area. So you can trade with local traders. If we were a community here now, right, we could say this is our money. I owe you. You built me a wall. Yeah. So here's £1,000, and then you could take that and maybe I supply you with loads of fruit, veg, meat, all that sort of stuff, and you pay me with that £1,000 note. Do you see what I mean? Or whatever the value is on there. Or you can give it to somebody else and exchange it, and they can. But the thing about it,
You've got to be there every month to collect that money.
well, no, but that's the thing. Once it's been traded, right, it fulfills the obligation, your obligation within. You no longer have to pay any payments. Because the debt is settled with a transaction, the debt is settled. If they passed on that note, just like all fiat banknote currency, right, purely exists now for its value based on faith alone, trust and faith alone.
Is that the same with bailiffs once, because they bought the debt on, so actually the debt's you're not actually...
Well, I don't know for sure whether they buy the debt, as it were, right? I heard this many years ago, that they buy the debt and whatever. I think certain enforcement agencies, or debt collection agencies, I think they just call themselves, buy the debt, right? But these bailiffs that come round, or enforcement officers that come round,
So what is this?
I think they make their money on the fees
Yeah.
of that debt, right, and enforce you to pay it,
Yeah.
right? So it's not that they bought the debt; they'll pass that money on to the creditor. That creditor probably will pay them a fee to take it on, but they're not buying the debt. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
They're just hiring their services. So they're earning money that way, then they earn money from you with their fees. But, so, let's say you filled this out, right? You put your address there as to where they've got to come and collect it from, because you're trying to make it as awkward as you can for them, and as economically unviable as you can. Then you date it, you sign it in the presence of somebody. Now that's what this bit is at the bottom, the signatory witness declaration. They need to put their name, address, occupation and position, rank, sign it, date it, and hopefully you'll get somebody who's got like a stamp, right? You know, any kind of official stamp, yeah? Only because the visual stamp gives it that more faith in the note, and it's all based on faith, just like a banknote. If you saw a banknote with the missing, with the queen missing, yeah, then you would question the validity of the banknote. But if you see it with the queen or the crest on there, then you accept that it's like an automatic
What is
thing.
the
Can the
blue
witness
ink?
be anyone?
Oh,
Can the witness be anyone?
it can be anybody at all. What it is, if you use an authority, right? So if you use a library is a good one, right? Because they've got a stamp, right? So just go to a librarian, and all they're doing, they let them know they assume no liability for the note, right? They are literally just saying, yes, I saw them, this person sign that note. Now it's never going to be an issue, simply because you're never going to deny its existence, right? It's only in case, in future, they came with the note. Let's say they thought, all right, smart ass, we'll test you on it, yeah? Yeah, and if you fail to pay up on that date or that amount on that it says on that note, we'll then go to court and say you've dishonoured the note, which will then scrap the note, right? And then you'll still be obligated to pay, right? So, what I always recommend to people, if you're paying a mortgage or paying regular payments, just keep one payment, right? Because they'll only test you once, and it's unlikely they'll test you at all. But if they wanted to, they might say, all right, we'll try and collect on it just to see if they do actually pay up. Yeah? You know, if you've got one payment in a box somewhere or a tin somewhere, waiting for them to turn up, if they don't turn up, yeah, then excellent, you've still got that money. If they do, you've completed that test, and they'll go away and go, oh, bloody hell, they paid up. We didn't want them to pay up because we wanted them to dishonour the note.
Because they would normally want to add it to your following monthly payments, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and then you see, if you dishonour the note, then they can take you back to court. They can get the notes dishonoured by the court or dismissed by the court, but also they can then start charging you for their time in coming out to collect that payment which you dishonoured. So, and all their legal fees and all that sort of shit. So they can pile all
You
on
mentioned the
top.
financial crash before in 2008.
Yeah.
And I remember I got made redundant then, and I was quite a few months behind. And obviously, you know, we was quite asleep back then, a lot of us. So obviously all they do is they try to add on to your payments, which you've got a £600 payment, which becomes £800 payment.
Yeah.
Because they come back within a period of time, don't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah.
But you're saying no, you do a promissory note for that 1 month, yeah?
You do a promise. You could do a promise. I mean, you could effectively if they come out, let's say you put down there, I'll give you £50 a month, right? If they turned up and on that day or the next day, and you haven't got £50, you might have just thought, oh, they're not going to collect on it. They didn't collect on it last month. I'll use that to go and get some shopping with, and then I'll replace it, you know, next week when I get paid. If you did that and then they turned up to collect on it, right? At worst, what you could do, print out another promissory note. This is treated as cash. Promissory note, according to the Bills of Exchange Act 1882, Part 4, right, is a promise to pay that should be treated as cash. Yeah? And if it's treated as cash, and that's what the case law of Lord Denning is saying, that this is treated as cash. It must be treated as cash, right? Because it's cash in advance. It's like a post-dated cheque. Yeah? It's a legal payment. And cheques are acceptable, right? Postal orders accepted. They're nothing more than promissory notes, same as this, right? So what this does, if you're settling, if you've got a mortgage, right, you've got a secured debt there, which means if you miss, say, 3 payments in a row or whatever, they'll come to take your house away because it's written within the agreement. Until that is settled, right, they own your home, yeah, and they can come and collect on it. So you settle that by creating a new debt for the exact same amount, but now it's an unsecured debt. Right? It's no longer a secured debt. The secured debt is now being settled, which means the title deed's transferred to you now. Yeah? Your mortgage is paid. You still owe the money. Yeah? You still owe the money. If they don't collect within 6 years, it becomes statute barred. Right? Which means it can no longer be enforced. Any debt, 6 years from the last communication with them or payment, right? It becomes statute barred, right, under the law, which means you still owe the money, but nobody can chase you for it, right? Nobody can enforce it, no court can issue an order, a liability notice or anything for the debt. So what happens then is the debt will be dissolved. I've had that before, I've done that before with Lowell Financial, right? I've done that with them.
For example, you've done the promissory note.
Yeah.
They've accepted the promissory note, and they've started actually coming to you and collecting payments. If, for example, you passed away before the completion of the payments, can they then claim that from your estate after your passing? I don't know.
No, what they would do is claim on their insurance that backs their investments. So they would claim on their insurance, but also that note is still in existence. That note still exists. Right? It doesn't go away just because you die. You know. So if you take out a mortgage and get hit by a car the next day and you're dead, yeah, that mortgage, that note, that credit note that you signed and created that money into existence, can now never be settled. Right? So that note will just stay existing on faith alone. As soon as this has been... Right, so how a promissory note works is, let's say you owe £10,000, right? You write a promissory note for £10,000. If, when they come to collect on it, you give them the full £10,000, right? That then cancels this note, right? That £10,000 that you created now disappears from the ecosystem of money, right? It's settled. But if it can't be settled, then the note just exists for the value it is, just like any other banknote, right? And it's sold, like I say, you can't bank a promissory note, so you can't commit fraud that way as far as, you know, getting your mate to, you know, I'll go arse with you if I write you a promissory note for 100 grand, we'll have 50 grand each if you put that in your bank. You can't bank it, but you could sell it on the international markets. You won't get 100 grand for it, or 10 grand, or whatever the amount is. You know, you'll get a fraction of that, 5-10% of that, right? But because they never created the money, so they never spent any money, when you get a loan or a mortgage, you create that money, right? They then add that to their bookkeeping, then they lend you that money, and then they get you to pay that money back to them with interest. If the whole lot is paid and settled, right, then that disappears and they get to keep the interest only, right? If it's never settled, they can just sell that credit agreement, that mortgage agreement on the international markets and get money for it. They didn't lose anything, right?
But they wouldn't be able to come back and then claim that from your property, for example, it being passed on to the children in a will, but they wouldn't be able to then come back and...
No, if it's passed on to your children, then it's now the property of your children. So next to kin, and it's not like if somebody died, or when somebody dies, the first thing the family do is contact all the creditors and say, oh, you know, that promissory note, you know, or that money they owe you, they won't be able to pay you now, you know. So by the time they did even know about it, like I say, they're not going to collect on it anyway. It's a bit of a moot point, but I get your point. But because they're not going to collect on it anyway, because it's not worth it, right? And the terms and the conditions of this note doesn't say that you can have settlement on demand in full should I die, right? It's still the amount that you're prepared to pay them each week, yeah? So, and then if they did come round by that point and then found out you were dead, right? And so you can't pay them, it's your signature. You can't pay them, right? The physically on demand, right? Then they'll go back and report that as, you know, that person is dead, so we need to sell this note now. It just needs to exist on the international bond markets as part of a bundle with value to that amount. Yeah. So that other organisations, banks buy them and financial institutions, so they can lend out 9 times that amount, right? Just by owning that note. It might have cost them 10 quid. Yeah, they might have bought it for 10 quid in the big scheme of things when you work it out, but it's worth £1,000. Yeah, and therefore their bookkeeping goes up by £1,000. Yeah, they don't ever have to do anything with this note, just keep it in a vault somewhere, that's it. So that's how it works. It settles debt by creating a new debt, but an unsecured debt, right? That breaks it down into such small chunks, yeah, that it's not viable for them to collect on it. And if it's not viable on their business at the end of the day, they're not going to spend 50 quid to collect 40, you know?
I'd like to try this with my mortgage. I've got quite a sizable mortgage,
Yeah.
but I've got, it's actually a buy-to-let mortgage because I had a tenant in there till 6 months ago, and I wasn't able to sort it out there. So I shouldn't be living there, essentially, because it's buy-to-let, and I'm a bit concerned about drawing attention to myself on the basis of I shouldn't be living there.
Well, it doesn't matter. Once it's settled, it's your property and it's settled, isn't it? So once you've sent the note, once it's delivered, once you've got proof of delivery, and always send it tracking delivery. I always send any documentation I need to send anywhere to anyone would be raw mail, special delivery next day by 1 p.m. Timed to be on a weekday so that they receive it there rather than at the weekend where it's just, you know, in the post bag.
Last year, of someone clearing their mortgage with a promissory note.
Say again, sorry?
Someone last year at a talk learned that someone had cleared their mortgage with a promissory note.
Yeah. There's,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Michael Tellinger is probably one of the most famous. Paid his, which the wording. I used Michael Tellinger's own note, but mine's prettier. So,
Okay.
I'll just go to and then I'll come back to this
Yeah, I was
lady.
just going to say, you kind of intimated that it's kind of proportionality, what you offer to pay to the total debt. So you said about 20 quid for 10,000.
Yeah.
So if you've got a heavy mortgage, I don't know, 300 grand, what would you offer?
I'd probably put 50 quid.
Oh, you wouldn't go up too much then?
No.
Oh.
No, I'd probably, the maximum at all I would go is 50 quid, right? Because when you start getting to like £100 or £200, that starts becoming, you know, if they can get someone and it costs them 90 quid to send them and do all the admin and whatever, they've still made a tenner.
Yeah.
It's still value, they've still made a profit. So make it an amount that you know is not going to be viable. It's not going to be viable to pay an agency, because also all of these companies, they've got rid, this is how foolish they've been. They've got rid of all of their collection services, right? And they do it now, a lot of it by outsourcing to other companies to do it digitally, yeah? But it's all done digitally anyway now, and they have no analog system. So if somebody insists on paying in cash, they have to then instruct a collection agent, but there's not a collection agent in every town and city throughout the country, right? So they've got to pay for somebody's travel expenses and their hourly rate to and from there. Can they do that for 50 quid? I doubt it. Yeah. So if you put 50 quid, you're saying that's what I can afford. The law accepts that. That's what I, because under the law, as long as you're paying at least £1, right?
Yes.
It doesn't matter how long it takes
That's
to
how
pay.
mortgages are written off, like what this lady just said here.
Yeah.
So we could affect,
That's what.
say that to the mortgage company.
There's different ways to
waive off.
disperse your mortgage. One
You're
way,
talking about very low payments then, and they just don't bother coming around, yeah?
What I was going to say earlier, if you had six months of not paying, for example, they didn't pay for 6 months, and then would they come to you for the 6 months money, or would they?
That's what
they can only collect one payment at a time. It doesn't accumulate. So if they didn't collect January's payment,
That's lost.
No, if you didn't pay for 6 months, so you load six
Yeah.
grand, for example.
Yeah.
So would they come to you for the 6 grand, or would they then put the whole mortgage and the 6 grand to a?
they come only for the amount that's written there with the interest that's written there.
So which would be the.
You're putting that aside every month. If they don't
No, you don't put it aside every month. You only need one payment. If they're going to test,
It's one payment per month.
Yeah, that's
If
one
they're gonna-
payment,
yeah.
that's what I meant, David.
it's one payment per
One
month.
payment. So
But-
it's 50 quid a month, you put that aside, but if they don't knock on the door on the first,
You don't need to get another 50 quid. You can just keep. Oh yeah.
yeah, if they don't turn up, they're
Let me just go to this lady because she's been.
been.
Sorry, can I just?
If you've already got debt and you're paying off, can you stop that and then do it?
Yeah, you settle the remaining balance. That's essentially what you're doing, because that's the same with a mortgage. You're paying off a mortgage, but then you get to a point where you say, I'm going to pay it off with a promissory note. You pay off the balance. And with a mortgage, if it's a fairly recent mortgage, you've got a early settlement penalty clause, right? Add that in as well. Add that to the amount. So find out from your mortgage company, if I was to pay this off tomorrow, don't tell them by promissory note, but if I was to pay this off tomorrow, or somebody was to pay it for me to settle that debt, how much would the full amount be that you require? Right? That's the amount that you put on the promissory note. That includes all fees, all the admin costs, early cancellation fees, all of that stuff. You get the total amount, and that's what you put on the note.
We've got a fault fine, so we could stop that.
You pay it with this. Pay it with this, and then fill in the N443 and get a certificate of satisfaction.
Yeah, you tick it, don't you?
Yeah, it's a tick box. You've got one or two, satisfaction or cancellation. If it's within 30 days of the issuing date, yeah, then you tick the one for cancellation. If it's not, you want satisfaction.
Yeah, it's more than 30 days, yes, so we tick the certificate.
Yeah, for satisfaction then, yeah. So, and, yeah, because it's the courts as well, they know about promissory notes, you know, there's case law, it's their law.
Is there
Sorry.
I was just going to say, is there a website or anything that's referred to for all this information that's sort of reasonably comprehensible, like, you know, not...
I mean, the information's all out there.
Yeah.
It's whether it's collated in one website in what I've told you or not is another matter. I don't currently have I keep meaning to set up a website. I've got the web address and everything, peaceofficers.uk. If you need any copies, by the way, if you need the templates or whatever, just email me, Davey at peaceofficers.uk. Not .co.uk, just .uk. Davey spelled D-A-V-E-Y.
Davey,
and
what did you say, sorry?
Davey, D-A-V-E-Y, at peaceofficers.uk.
Thank you.
I still need to set up the website, which I will get round to at some
Yeah.
point, and then I'll put all this information sort of on there. But I am filming it, so if you go onto my YouTube channel, I'll put it up sometime this week, Peace Officers UK, or you've got your
Fair Play Now.
Fair Play Now
On YouTube as well.
on YouTube as well, where, you know, it's also filmed.
And they're both got within a week or so, will they?
Oh, it'll be sometime this week, yeah.
Is that the Mark Holt thing?
Which?
Peace officers?
No, that's my thing. I created it in April 2021. More as a protest thing, but
Yeah.
it's a long story. I could do 2 hours just on that. But, right, sorry, you had the
blue ink must be signed in blue ink.
The blue ink makes it more difficult when it comes to copying.
Right, because I know in some documents, like with your logbooks, they say it must be signed in black ink.
Yeah.
Now, I've signed them with blue ink before, just to piss them off, and it still comes through.
Yeah. It's because they want it in black ink because it's easier for them to photocopy black ink than it is blue ink.
Yeah,
Blue ink can come up quite faint on some photocopiers, so that's why they get you to do it all in black. But you're doing it in blue, so that if somebody just photocopied that with a black and white copier, do you know what I mean, you would be able to tell that's not the original signature because it's not signed in blue.
Yeah.
Now, the signatory witness doesn't have to sign it in blue, just you signing the note in blue.
Okay.
Yeah, you could write the date in black if you wanted to, it doesn't matter, or write it in blue. But sign it in blue ink, get it stamped. Yeah. If you can't find anybody, I mean, a police station would be a good place to just walk into the desk and say, can you just witness that I'm signing this? Yeah, they've got a stamp, you know, Sussex Police or Kent Police or whatever. A library is a good one. If you can't find anybody, yeah, buy your best mate one of those personalised stamps on eBay. A few quid on eBay, probably a tenner. Yeah, but a logo. Here, Hope Sussex, they done my other half, Jess's. Yeah, because they've got a stamp. So a Hope Sussex stamp. So yeah, so there's plenty of places, you know, a kid's school or grandkid's school.
When will the proof be that this works? The proof in pudding, as they say.
Right. So once it's been delivered, the debt is now settled. They're going to contact you and say, we don't accept it. Excellent, because you've now got more proof that the note was delivered. Right? They can't deny that now in court in future and say, well, we didn't get a note, or you know, whatever. In court, they would have to, if you had a CCJ, like I say, you could get the certificate of satisfaction, right? And that's your proof. You don't even have to communicate with them anymore. You don't have to worry about them.
So
if they come to your door, if they come out to your door, you pull out the certificate of satisfaction. They go, oh, okay, fair enough. See you later, right? So they're not going to threaten to take anything or come in because you've got that from the court with the official stamp, signature, everything, right? That is cast iron, right? You can send them a copy of that if you want. You can send a copy of that to TransUnion, the credit reference people, and say, can you mark that debt as settled now, please? They will eventually anyway, because it's updated from the court registers. So when the court updates its register to say settled on that CCJ, then the credit reference agencies will be informed of that anyway.
What I mean is there any case studies? Is there anyone who can say, yes, my house now got the deeds?
Michael Telliger. Michael Telliger did it.
So is that just one person?
The problem is that there was another guy, right? There was a newspaper clipping. It's from, I think it was 2015. A reporter did a piece on it, right? But they didn't do the follow-up. And I know why they didn't do the follow-up. It's because they don't want people to know that this is successful, right? But he went to court, right? And they were having to try and prove why they wouldn't accept the promissory note, right? Because it can't be refused on the grounds of preference, okay, payment preference, like I say, Lord Denning's ruling. But there was supposed to be a follow-up article, and of course they never did the follow-up article. I looked them up on Twitter, because they're still on Twitter, and you can see their posts from 2015 and somebody saying, have you got the follow-up story that said it'll be in on this date or whatever, but I can't find the piece. But that will be because they don't want people to know about it, because the whole system crumbles. When everyone knows this and you pay off all debt, the only thing that enslaves you in this society is debt, right? You're enslaved by it. Yeah? So if you can pay it all off with a promissory note, yeah, you're no longer a slave, are you? You no longer have to work 40, 60 hours a week. You know, you can work 5 hours a week just for some pocket money.
Just going back to the mortgage though, and like they're not going to make it easy, are they?
No, but it doesn't matter whether they make it easy or not. If it's been settled, it's been settled. If they refuse to, if they say no, we're not going to return the deed, you still owe us this money, take them to court, get a court order yourself, forcing them to sign over those deeds. They're unlawfully holding those deeds. It's illegal, so they're breaking the law by doing that. Once it's been settled, right? Those deeds now belong to you, and you want them back. Go through the courts. You've got all the solid things you need. Like I say, like your question just now about, you know, is there somebody that's, well, Salim Najjar done it. It's written there, the case law's written under where it says promissory note and the Bills of Exchange Act. All the details you need is there, right? He did it and then created legal precedents, which means now we can all do it, yeah? But they don't teach you it at school because they don't want you to know it. Because if you know it, you're never going to be a debt slave.
My friend, she's got into a fair sized debt with the energy company.
Yeah, pay off with a promissory note.
She's found it difficult to pay for her monthly ones because of how much it's gone up. How does a promissory note just deal with the debt, or could she use the promissory note as to deal with the debt and
right, so what you would do is you would use the note to pay off the outstanding debt, right, and then give it a year and send them another promissory note for the previous year.
Okay.
Yeah, so let the debt stack up again, yeah, then pay them with another promissory note.
Okay.
Right, then you've got another year and just keep doing it like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
About when if they then come back and say they refused it, and then you write back to them and you state in there about the legal law.
Yeah. First of all, thank them for their confirmation that they've received it. Yeah. Because that's important. What you're saying there is thank you for corresponding with me, because now, if you look up yourself, the Bills of Exchange Act 1882.
Was it
Bills of Exchange Act 1882, I think it's Part 4, Part IV, which explains what the definition is. It's written on the promissory note.
Oh, it is, sorry.
Yeah, under where it says promissory note, you've got the case law and the Bills of Exchange Act, and all the reference material there. So, yeah, this pays off your debt. Like I say, the index sheet, you've got enough there to use.
So thank
10
them
notes.
for acknowledging their note.
Sorry?
You said thank them for acknowledging.
Thank them for acknowledging receipt of the note. Tell them to cease any further enforcement action. If it's for a mortgage, whatever, tell them you would like them to send you the title deeds within, and set the time, 14 days or 30 days of the note of this notice, this letter. If they fail to do so, take court action against them. The court will force them to. Doesn't matter what they say. Forget about what they say. People get hung up on the bump that they're sent and saying, oh, but they're saying they don't accept it. Well, you don't care what they're saying. Yeah? The law says they can't refuse it. Okay? If there's a debt, you have a right to pay with a promissory note under the law. And the case law gives it the concrete you need.
Doing the right thing.
Yeah. So they can't refuse it. So in a court, how can they explain to a judge, right, that they refuse this as their payment preference? They can't do it. Because you say, Fielding and Platt Limited versus Salim Najjar 1969 under Lord Denning, and that judge will go, yeah, got ya.
It's just the same as using their notes.
Yeah.
What court do you go to do this?
The issuing court, whoever issues the court, if you're not sure, so if you haven't already got a CCJ or a liability order or something like that, there's a liability order, because that's normally the first process, right? Before they come to you, they'll go to the court to get a liability order, find out which court issued that liability order and send them form N443, right, to get a certificate of satisfaction, which then cancels that liability order, which means, because a bailiff, before he comes to your address, the first thing they do is check the status of the writ, right, whether it's still a live writ or not, because they don't want to waste their journey. And also they're after low-hanging fruit. So if you have your notice up, they're going to immediately lack confidence in the fact that they're going to collect on this debt today.
What I mean is, if you sort of say, well, I'm paying off one of these notes, blah blah blah, they don't send you the deeds within 30 days, what court do you go to pursue that?
Right, go to the court that issued the liability order in the first place with the court, with form N443. Once you've got that certificate of satisfaction, right, you can then send a copy of that to the land registry, right, and get them to put the deeds over, because the court have basically said no, that's been settled, right. So you can bypass them and go straight for the land registry.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, I owe the money to the mortgage.
Yeah.
I'm sending them a note saying I'm clearing my debt.
Yeah.
Now, they don't send me the deeds, so they haven't sent me the deeds. So how do I start a court
Well,
case?
like I say, it's the process. It's the process of going through, first of all, getting the certificate of satisfaction, right? Because before they can. They've obviously already gone to court, right, and got a liability order. Before they can get even an eviction notice, they first have to get a liability order.
So default on the payments first then?
Yeah.
So you can default on the payments. Well, what you do is there a liability order in place at the moment? Is there a liability notice? Right. So you're just paying your mortgage as normal, and you're wondering, like, with the process, right? So what I would do then is contact the land registry, and once you've made payments, once you've got your proof, you've got your photocopies, send them photocopies and say, this debt has now been settled, please can you, they're refusing to sign over the registry. Which court you will go through, it would be the administrative court, so contact your local county court, right, and get a county court judgment.
Because most mortgages are held with the banks, at Lloyds, Halifax, or whatever they are.
Yeah, or at least their subsidiary companies, financial institutions. But it doesn't matter, you're going to use the courts for all that, to sort that out. Like I say, if you had a CCJ or a charging order against you, that's an easier route to kind of completely bypass them, send them the note, right, and then forget they even exist anymore. As long as you get that from the court, right, that certificate of satisfaction, that's all you need. That's your get out of jail free card, right? So that is your next step. Once you've got that, right, you can send that to any organisation, whether it's a credit reference agency, whether it's a bailiff company, whether it's the mortgage company. You can say, no, I've got my certificate of satisfaction, I've proven that I've made payments, please send me those deeds, otherwise I'm going to charge you. And you can then include a fee schedule, so £1,000 per day that you don't hand over those documents, yeah, or a set amount that you come up with.
So we're going to have to go. Thank you very much.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming. No problem at all. Thank you. Right, so is there any more questions?
Just one last one.
Yeah.
If millions of people start doing this,
yeah,
they're obviously going to try and close it down, aren't they?
Well, they can't close it down. They can't.
No, there's no way
they can't. Right. So if they was to close down the use of promissory notes, it would crash all businesses across the planet, because they all operate on promissory notes. All credit is promissory notes. Right. So their system can't exist without promissory notes, which is why they're defined in law. Right. They can't exist without them. Yeah, they don't actually transfer, they don't get chunks of money from one company to another and transport it and dump it off. It's all with promises, it's all agreements and adding, changing that figure to that figure and It's all fake, yes.
Maybe this is happening already, and that's why they want to stop cash and they want to start the CBDC, because this maybe is going on behind the scenes.
If they stop cash, all they're going to do is the banks are just going to stop producing banknotes. That doesn't mean cash is now illegal or not used. As I say, the Lewis pound will still exist. That's cash. That's promissory notes. That will still exist. If you're in a community, right, a large community, you can have your own currency and say, for your goods and services, the sweat of your brow is worth X amount, right? So every time per hour. So here's, hope notes, for example. Here's 100 hope notes for that wall you built, yeah. And you then might buy that off, use those hope notes for somebody who's growing vegetables, and they'll send you 100 hope notes worth of vegetables. That's how currency works. That's a legitimate legal tender, right? It's not just banknotes. That's just one of the methods. That's just copy written by the banks. That's all. But it doesn't mean they have ownership over all cash. It just means they'll stop producing cash. That's all.
What about the countries who've tried doing this, like Gaddafi in Libya, and he got assassinated, didn't he? He tried to make his own.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to send anyone after you with a gun, to be honest with you, if you pay off your mortgage with a note.
But if you can't guarantee it, okay.
Can't guarantee it, no, sorry about that. Yeah, no, I don't think you need to worry about
Sorry, you'll just say
Gaddafi.
Obviously, like everyone's like interested in what we're saying, whatever. But I think what what people are looking for is looking for someone to help them along with this. I'm guessing that's something you're going to offer. Is it you're going to offer help?
My email address. My email address is davey@peaceofficers.uk. I'm asking the question. Yeah. I get requests every day.
So is this something that you do as a is it something that you do for people?
It's a hobby to me.
That's right, yeah.
It's a hobby to me. Right? This is a way of sticking it to the system my way.
Yeah, I think what it is, everyone wants you to tell them that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. If you need my help, I'm always available.
There you go.
If you're in, go on my Telegram group. If you're on Telegram. But no, if you're in my Telegram group, you can contact me there, or you can email me and say, Davey, I don't know what it was. What was it you said about that? And I'll respond.
Everyone wants to ask that, but
Yeah. No, feel free. If I can help you, I'll help you.
There you go.
If I can help you, I'll help you. And I'll never charge you a penny for doing so either.
I'm fine with it anyway, but I'm guessing that's what people want to do.
Now, this is my way of sticking it to the system.
Yeah, there you go, yeah.
It's not a living to me. I don't earn out of it.
You're a helpful guy, and you want to help everyone, and
the truth of the matter is, I hate money. I despise the stuff. It's the root of all evil. It makes people horrible, evil, selfish, murderous, all kinds of things. So I've got everything I need. There's nothing I actually want. So
I'll agree with you.
Yeah, other than people doing this and going to the system.
I'll There's two things going on here. One is obviously how to beat the system at their own game, and the other one is how to keep the bailiffs away from you by using common law, etc.
Well, don't use common law to get away. Use the legal system to get use the legal system to get them away from you, so they won't even come to you in the first place. This bit should get rid of them in the first place, right? Especially if you can get it into a court. That's brilliant. Like I say, if it's already gone to court, you've got a CCJ. That's brilliant, because now you can get a certificate, and that's all you need. It's like a medallion that you can flash to them, or a gold badge. You can flash them, and they go, "Oh, right, okay, stand out." That's that.
I agree. I mean, I'm hearing what you're saying.
Right. So I think we'll probably call that it. We're now on 5:30. Well,
I was just
yes.
going to say, I think, am I right in saying there's been some rumour about government are going to, we're going to bring in CBDCs, but we're not going to do away with cash. The two will run in parallel.
Well, they'll probably try and do that. I mean, that is one method of them doing it, right? Yeah. However, I think they're going to wait until within 24 hours of the actual crash, right? Because then they come out looking like the saviours, right? They come out, and also it's that psychological thing, isn't it? If you're desperate, panicking, going, I'm not going to buy things, yeah? You're watching the news intently, waiting for a solution. Once they offer you that solution, it's problem, reaction, solution. Once they offer you that solution, you're grateful for it. Thank you, government. Thank you. Do you see what I mean? So the psychology is they want to control you, and if they want to control you, they'll use their control methods.
This is where the promissory note might kick in, because obviously we're not going to accept their CBDC. So when obviously your bank goes down and you can't pay your direct debits with the mortgage, you could then give them the promissory note and say, look, I can't pay you because I don't have a CBDC.
I mean, you can, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? You can.
Because we're not going to accept it.
What happens when the CBDC gets here? Time will tell.
We will, in the community, truth community, I think everything.
Oh, in the community, we'll probably come up with our own Lewis pound.
I was going to say, in the last 3 years, because obviously we know it's a silent war, we see the bullets, we've actually overcome their bullets and got out of the way and solved it.
People panic too much about what the state may do in the future and where they're headed. You've got to remember, right, that this is all a master plan, right? They've had planned for not just weeks, months, years, but decades, hundreds, centuries, millennia, right? But more so, obviously, decades as to what we're going through now with the Great Reset. They're working off a plan, right? Well, if you've ever been to a party or a wedding, right? Let's say you're planning your wedding, yeah? You plan it all in your head, how it's going to work out, you pay for this, you book that, all of that, right? But when you get to the wedding, yeah, and you're actually living it, it's actually playing out. It's not playing out like it did in your head. You didn't know your Auntie Maureen was going to sneeze and shit her pants. Do you know what I mean? You didn't know that. You didn't know your Uncle Harry was going to get so pissed he's going to have a big punch-up with the groom. You didn't know that. You can't plan for that. There's too many other variables involved, right? There's too many other people involved, and that's when you're just planning a wedding for one day with a small group of people. Try controlling 8 billion people on the planet, right? And getting your plan to be successful. It's impossible.
Their wedding day is not
never going to happen.
Their plan, we know that.
Yeah, it's never going to happen because no plan works out to plan.
When the CBD comes along, we are just going to treat it like any other bullet. And I think within the Truva community, there will be a solution. I genuinely believe that. And
we'll start using gold and silver and stuff like that. We'll start.
There will be a solution.
Promissory note.
Promissory notes. Yeah.
If you don't accept that, well, that's your problem.
Yeah, precisely. Then you'll be whistling for your money if you don't accept that. We will have a community that will accept that. Do you know what I mean? And, when you get your first bulk payment of your CBDC, spend it on things that will benefit you out of that system. Do you know what I mean? Buy yourself a generator. Buy yourself some, seeds and stuff to grow your own. All that sort of stuff. Right, so thank you everyone. If you do need to contact me, obviously I'm on social media, I'm here often. You've got my email address. Contact me if you've got any problems. If you're not sure about something, I'll explain it the best I can. I will put out obviously this video on my YouTube channel, Peace Officers UK, and also you can get on Fair Play Now as well, sometime this week or by next week. So if there is anything you think, oh, what was it you said, then you'll be able to watch it on there. So thank you everyone for turning out. Cheers, my friend.
Thanks, Davey. Love you lots.
Oh, love you always, mate.
Thanks, Dave.